Hey guys, it's Thomas with Puddle Jumper Adventures again, bringing you another family adventure that we went on July of 2025. We went to Arches National Park there in Utah. This was our first visit, and the video today is primarily going to be about the Delicate Arch Trail. It is a 3 mile round trip hike. It's rated as strenuous, although I would rate it a little bit higher than that. But let's see what the trail looks like, and we'll give you some of our thoughts and opinions on what you will encounter and what you should prepare for.
You guys want to see the petroglyphs on the way back so that way we can beat the sun?
So just a little background information on what we have going on. We have a 4-year-old, 7-year-old, and a 12-year-old, plus me and my wife. We did get there about 8 o'clock in the morning. By the time we got started, after unloading and all that stuff, getting ready, it was about 8:30. And we had a busy day before, so I thought, we're going to try and get there as early as possible. We should have probably got there a little bit earlier at 8. So when we got there about 8 and it started about 8:30, it was like mid-80s, which, us in the Midwest, it's kind of like, oh, mid-80s, this feels nice, but it warmed up super quick and got really hot. And here you can see we're loading up our 4-year-old. She was not really prepared for hiking that much, so mom's giving her a lift there. But we're not super hikers. We're not, we don't find strenuous trails and, go on them all the time. We're not regular exercisers. This is just, I told my wife and I told the kids, I said, hey, I remember being in elementary and, getting the National Geographic or the highlights and seeing the arch on there. I was like, I've always wanted to go see that. And didn't actually think in my lifetime I'd actually, first of all, go to Arches, and then second of all, make the trail myself. But we did. We got here, and we decided that we knew it was going to be a bear to go on this trail. And once again, I've mentioned in a previous video, and when we did our Grand Teton Jenny Lake one, I have a propensity to underestimate some of these trails. And you're going to hear me throughout the video say, oh, we're not that far away, it's just right up there. You probably won't actually hear that, but you'll probably see the look on my wife's face of like, you're saying that again, and there's still ants just walking up ahead. But anyways, it does warm up real quick, so if we go back again, I definitely would want to go back and start earlier. We camped at Dead Horse State Park, which is kind of like about 30 minutes away. And I think if we did it again, I would have kept our reservation at Devil's Campground, because it would have been closer, and we would have also been able to start a little bit earlier, because I think it would have definitely saved us on our getting started time and on our way back, because getting up there, it started getting pretty warm once we got to the Slick Rock. You can see that the trail heading towards like the Delicate Arch, it's fairly been pathed out. The National Park Service has done a good job of making sure that there's stones and all that stuff kind of leading you where to go, and the path's been smoothed out and stuff. Of course, it gets millions of visitors a year, so it's well worn and stuff like that. But kind of when you get to like the Slick Rock, it's kind of like, well, you can kind of deviate and kind of zigzag and all that stuff. But I do have some recommendations, and I know everybody's going to tell you the same thing that I told you. The packs that we're wearing, they're kind of like those camel backpacks. I think they hold 2 liters of water, and each one of us had our own, and we filled them up. And I think I drained mine in probably the first part of the hike, so going up to Delicate Arch. So one thing my wife and I were talking about was definitely for if we go back again at some point and we do something like this, bringing not only the camelbacks, but also each one of us would probably need a decent sized water container to keep us our thirst quenched, because I went through mine pretty quick, and so did all the kids. Because sometimes the kids don't drink as much, so I kind of rely on some of theirs too sometimes. And, because as adults we drink a little bit more than the kids do. And even the kids were kind of drinking down their water too, because it was pretty hot. My 7-year-old, she did really good on it. She hiked the whole thing. Of course, you can see her taking breaks and trying to find some shade as much as possible. And I did the tortoise in the hare type thing where slow and steady wins the race. So we took plenty of breaks and all that good stuff. But it was a very interesting. I don't know. I think it took us 2 or 3 hours, so 2 to 3 hour hike. I think that was the part that kind of you don't really think about. It's you start at 8:30, but by the time you're finished and you sit there, because you want to spend some time at the Delicate Arch. You get back there and it's you don't just go back there and you spend 2 minutes taking pictures and then you leave. We wanted to kind of sit and experience the area, kind of check some other things out, take a bunch of family pictures, because this is something that we'd never seen before. So up here we are. We're kind of off the trail a little bit now. So we're on the slick rock. You can kind of see where it's worn footpaths and people have walked through and stuff. This is actually a pretty good incline. The camera's kind of looking down a little bit, but you're actually going up. And the reason why the camera's looking down is because you're kind of leaning forward, so that's kind of taking the angle of that camera and looking it down. But this was probably the part that I took the most breaks on, because it is such a pretty good incline, except for the last part. The last part leading up to Delicate Arch is the most severe elevation gain. The slick rock does have, if you look at various sources, it's about 300 to 350 feet of elevation gain, which is a pretty good climb, especially when you're it's a little bit warmer than what you're used to, and there's really no shade and stuff. So, but one thing I do want to mention is we're not professional YouTubers, so we just like to document our travels and maybe give it a different angle than what people are used to. And in this case, my son was helping me video this, so he was wearing the GoPro, because I knew if I wore it, it wouldn't end well. And so he did a really good job with what he was supposed to do. But yeah, you see, we did take a lot of breaks, and we're kind of getting hot a little bit already. So that's one of the things that I would definitely recommend is bring as much as you can to help you stay cool. I even thought, next time bringing some of those cooling rags to kind of drape over and all that stuff. So, but we had planned on being at Arches for a day and a half, and going to visit some the other locations. I wanted to do the Devil's Garden, a little bit of that trail, and then some other trails that I had marked. But let me tell you, this hike, it wiped us out pretty good. And we mentioned at the beginning that we are not active everyday hikers, especially strenuous hikers. Although I want to get to that point some point, which is what I'm working on. But we had some plans to go visit some other locations. But when we were done with this one, we were really beat. On the way back down, it got us pretty tired. We were a little bit dehydrated, or at least I was. Everybody else was kind of along the same way, but not as bad as me. So, but yeah, you can see there's little areas here where you could just kind of meander off and look at some other things. But yeah, so if I would have any recommendation, it would definitely be to make sure you bring plenty of water. Like I said, the cooling rags and stuff like that. So that was kind of our number one detriment on us for this trail. So, and then any chance you get, if there's a shade kind of coming along, I would go ahead and take a break there, even if you'd taken a break more recently. So, but yeah, look at that beautiful scenery. And one thing that's funny is, we'd never been here before, and we would ask, hey, hikers coming back, how much longer or how much farther is it? And they're like, oh, just around the corner. And we'd get around that corner and it wasn't there. But lo and behold, right here, Bryson just walked up and there is the Delicate Arch. It's an amazing view once you get up there and you want to spend some time there. Here is our family picture in front of the Delicate Arch. There was another family that was gracious enough to offer to take our picture. And that's one thing that's great about going to these national parks. It seems to be a common courtesy that you offer to take pictures for other families, so that way they can get all their family members involved. Now, usually we have a backup plan. We have a little tripod thing we can set up with, and have a little remote that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. But it's just nice when people offer, because you can make it real quick and get your picture taken. And it was really cool. Bryson actually walked all the way out to the Delicate Arch and got a picture underneath of the Delicate Arch. That was really cool. And one other thing I want to note is we found out after the fact that the last quarter mile going up to the Delicate Arch is over 500 feet of elevation gain, which is some pretty severe elevation gain for that short amount of distance. And you can definitely feel it when you get up there. I know I had to take a pretty extensive break. I'd planned on walking out to the Delicate Arch myself, but I was already kind of feeling the effects of the heat that was starting to turn on and kind of blare up a little bit. So here's the rest of our hike.
I'm gonna get 3 peanut butter jelly sandwiches. 3 for each. Actually, I was about to say 1 for each mile, but
I'm gonna have 5.
that means 6. Because that was 3 miles that way, right? Okay, I was gonna say.
No, 1.5.
That's only 1.5.
Yep, the inclines and stuff.
That was
So bad.
definitely 3 miles feeling.
Were you surprised when you finally got to the top?
No, not really.
Was it cool?
Yeah.
It's funny, after watching that little clip where Bryson talks about the 1 for each mile, the tummy sandwiches he was going to eat. Kim and I were just talking about it, that he really did probably eat that many sandwiches, if not more. When you're talking about the Slick Rock having 300 feet elevation gain, and then you get to the last quarter mile, it has another 550 feet plus elevation gain, which we didn't find out until the end, because there's actually a park ranger that was down at the trailhead, advising people to bring plenty of water and letting them know it's warm and all that stuff. And he was also giving out information like that. So it was kind of funny. When we got back, we were fairly hungry. And at this point, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was like, all right, just roll me down this hill here, because I was pretty exhausted at this point. So, which I really hadn't planned on, because we still had some other stops I wanted to make. But when you're out on a adventure like this, and you can research and plan as much as you want and build in as much empty time as you want, but sometimes you just got to be flexible with the amount of time that you have, and sometimes you just gotta know when your body's limit has been reached. And this trail really did push us pretty hard. And for me myself, I was pretty exhausted myself. So when we left the Delicate Arch Trail, first of all, I was not only tired, but I was in complete amazement of being able to walk up there and see the Delicate Arch. But we did go back to the visitor center, and we picked up our Junior Ranger booklets and filled those out so the kids could get their Junior Ranger badges. And something that was kind of interesting that we hadn't really seen before is that this location, I think they're so busy that they had somebody that was just dedicated to doing just the Junior Ranger badges. So once we got the books done, we just kind of walked over, and where they had the table set up, and they took their oath and got their badge and stuff. So that was kind of neat to see. Of course, obviously, it's one of the busier parks that the National Park Service has. So, but yeah, a couple things. It's funny at the beginning of this video, I said, hey, let's beat the sun, and we'll come back and look at those petroglyphs. And I definitely did not check out the petroglyphs. Going down's a lot easier than going up, but at that point you're kind of tired. Even after all the breaks that I took and stuff like that. The sun does take a toll on you. I think that was the biggest one. It wasn't necessarily the heat; it was just that sun just bearing down on you. So definitely, next time we would probably want to get there a couple hours earlier, because I would have much rather been finished it up at 8 o'clock than at even like 10 o'clock. Because at 10 o'clock it was pretty much scorching out there. So, but yeah, no, we originally had a campsite set at Devil's Garden campground, but Devil's Garden doesn't really have any facilities like electric or anything like that, and we are in our Ford Transit, so we really needed to power so that way we could, run our air conditioning and stuff, because I need to have air conditioning, and so I ended up getting us a campsite at Dead Horse State Park. I mentioned that earlier. It's a Utah state park, and it is out in the middle of nowhere. But it's between there and Canyonland, so between the two entrances. So it's actually a reasonable difference between the two, and made it easier for us to access both of them. And it does have electric at the campsite, so it made it a little bit easier for us to stay cool and all that. So and it was cool. The night that we stayed there, they actually had their own ranger program going, and they did like this nighttime star where they were talking about the constellations and the Milky Way, and their park ranger had this like cool laser, and he was pointing out constellations, and it was just a really neat time. They had a telescope. They were pointing it at some different stars and stuff like that. But we really enjoyed it. It was really fun. The campsite itself was really nice. We just had signal issues is the only thing that I would note of that. So, this trail, it is very strenuous. It'll test your patience and your, ability to persevere through it. But at the end of the day, we still talk about, this trail and wanting to go back. So that's how awesome it was. But, like I said, we did kind of skimp out on the rest of the park when we left the Delicate Arch Trail. Oh, that's one thing I should mention is the parking. When we got there like 8:30, there were it was probably about 90% full. So there were still quite a few spots that were open, but I would definitely get there earlier, because when we got back, it was pretty packed, even on the RV overflow side. But when we did leave Arches to head back to the visitor center, we didn't stop at any other trails, but we did stop at some of the other locations to kind of drove by them, not necessarily stopped, but we saw Panorama Point, Balanced Rock, Pothole Arch, and then the Petrified Dunes, which were all really cool. And then of course you can see the courthouse towers and Park Avenue viewpoint and stuff like that. But it was just, by the time we left, it was so hot, we were so tired, that even just like those small, quarter mile, half mile hikes were kind of like, ugh. So be prepared for that. If in the future, I know I'm definitely going to plan at least probably like more than a day, unless I'm specifically just going for that trail. But definitely a great experience. This Thomas Polo Jumpers Adventures. We'll see you out there.